Have you ever prayed and felt nothing? Not even a whisper, not even a sense that God was near. Just silence, just stillness, just pain. And in that moment, you start to wonder, is something wrong with my faith? Because everyone says, just trust God, just believe, just hold on. But what if you've been holding on and it still hurts? This is when faith doesn't feel enough. Why God feels distant in pain. And maybe you've been there too. We've been told that faith is about feeling close to God, but real faith, sometimes it means staying, even when He feels far. Sometimes it's praying through tears. Sometimes it's worshiping with an aching heart. Sometimes it's showing up when everything in you wants to walk away. Because faith isn't always loud. It isn't always strong. It isn't always certain. Sometimes faith is fragile. It's whispering, God, I still trust you through clenched teeth. And that kind of faith, it's real. It's sacred. It's seen. Pain changes how we see things. It clouds clarity. It twists truth. It tells us God has left when He's actually closer than ever. Pain says, if He cared, He'd stop this. But God never promised a life without suffering. He promised His presence through it. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. That's Isaiah 43:2. Not when you avoid it, but when you pass through it. And sometimes, we don't feel Him in the flood. But He's still there, holding us up. Maybe you've thought, if I really had faith, I wouldn't feel this broken. But that's not true. Even Jesus, the Son of God, wept in the garden, sweated blood, felt abandoned on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Those weren't words of doubt. They were the cry of a hurting heart still connected to the Father. Your questions don't disqualify your faith. Your pain doesn't cancel your belief. In fact, your struggle might be the most honest prayer you've ever prayed. So why does God feel distant in pain? Because pain numbs us. It dulls our spiritual senses. It pulls us inward and shuts out the light. It doesn't mean God is moved. It means we've been wounded. And like any trauma, our hearts go into survival mode. We stop feeling. We stop sensing. We stop trusting. But even then, God is not gone. He's not afraid of your shutdown. He's not pacing the heavens wondering where you are. He's already beside you even when you can't feel it. Silence doesn't mean absence. Just because God isn't speaking in the way you expect doesn't mean He's not present. Sometimes His silence is Him sitting with you in the sorrow. Like a friend who doesn't need to say a word, He's just there. Steady. Still. God isn't always loud. He's not always dramatic. But He's always faithful. Even when faith doesn't feel enough, God is still holding on to you. You're not the only one who feels this way. David felt it. Elijah felt it. Job definitely felt it. Even Jesus felt it. And yet none of them were abandoned. None of them were forgotten. None of them were unworthy. Their pain didn't cancel their calling, and neither does yours. You are not a spiritual failure for feeling distant from God. You are a human soul crying out for connection, and God hears you even when you can't hear Him. Sometimes holding on to faith looks like barely hanging by a thread. It's not loud. It's not confident. It's not polished. It's messy. It's tear-stained. It's whispered. But it's still faith. Even when your prayers feel hollow, even when the worship songs feel far, even when the silence stretches longer than you imagined, God still counts it as faith. Because it takes courage to stay when you feel nothing, and He honors every moment you choose to stay. What if God is closer than you think? What if He's not waiting for you to feel stronger? What if he's sitting beside you in the dark? He doesn't need you to impress him. He doesn't need you to fake it. He just wants your honesty. Your raw, your real, your right now heart. Because when faith doesn't feel enough, God still is. He's enough for your weakness, enough for your doubt, enough for your sorrow, and he's not going anywhere. What if the strength of your faith wasn't in how tightly you held on to God, but in how tightly he holds on to you? Because some days your grip will slip, your voice will crack, your prayers will falter, and that's okay. God is not grading your performance. He's holding your heart. He's not measuring your emotions. He's pouring out mercy. So when your faith doesn't feel enough, rest in the truth that his love always is. Healing doesn't rush. It unfolds slowly, sacredly, in moments that don't always feel spiritual, like breathing through a panic attack, like texting someone you trust, like choosing to stay one more day. God works in those moments too. He's not just in the mountaintop highs. He's in the trenches, in the quiet breakthroughs, in the slow rebuilding of your soul. So, don't despise the slow days. They're sacred too. You don't have to pretend you're okay. Not with God. Not with people who love you. You can be honest. You can say, I'm not fine. Jesus didn't come for the polished. He came for the broken, the tired, the undone. He came for you. And even when you feel like you're barely holding on, he hasn't let go. Not once. Not ever. Your story is not over. Just because this chapter is heavy doesn't mean the whole book ends in sorrow. God is still writing, still redeeming, still moving. Even now, you might not see it, you might not feel it, but you are still in his hands. When faith doesn't feel enough, you are still in God's story, and that's a good place to be. Your feelings are real, but they are not the whole truth. You may feel abandoned, but you are not alone. You may feel unworthy, but you are deeply loved. You may feel like your faith has failed, but grace still holds you. God is not intimidated by your emotions. He meets you in them. And he gently reminds you that you are not your feelings, you are his. So wherever you are right now, in the dark, in the waiting, in the questions, God is not far. He's closer than your breath, more faithful than your fears. You are not forgotten. You are not weak. You are not disqualified. This is when faith doesn't feel enough, why God feels distant in pain. And the truth is, he never left. Even when you couldn't feel him, he was fighting for your heart. Christian healing. Faith in the dark, God feels distant. What if the silence wasn't rejection, but a sacred trust? What if God knows your heart can hold mystery, that you can walk through the valley and still choose him? That even when faith doesn't feel enough, you still show up, not because you feel strong, but because his strength carries you. And maybe the silence is where he's building something deeper, something eternal. You don't have to shout to have faith. You don't have to be certain to be faithful. Sometimes faith is quiet, soft, hidden, but that doesn't make it less holy. Your silent trust still moves God's heart. Your small prayers still reach heaven. And your slow healing still matters. Every act of faith, no matter how faint, echoes in eternity. When you feel nothing, God still feels everything. He sees the pain you don't have words for. He hears the prayers you can't even form. He collects the tears you cry in silence. And he's never once let go of your heart. Not in the middle of the night. Not in the middle of the fear. Not in the middle of the doubt. Even in your numbness, God remains deeply moved by you. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is simply stay. Stay in the moment, stay in the process, stay in the story. You don't have to fix it all today. You don't have to feel it all today. You just have to stay open, because your presence is enough for God to work with. You are still His, and He's still not finished. The pain won't last forever. The silence won't stretch endlessly. The breakthrough will come. The peace will return. The closeness will be felt again. God restores. It's what He does. It's who He is. And even when you don't feel Him, He's already preparing the next page of your redemption story. Keep breathing. Keep choosing hope. Because even when faith doesn't feel enough, God never stopped loving you. So here's the invitation. Don't measure your faith by how you feel. Measure it by the fact that you're still showing up, still listening, still reaching, still hoping. Even if it's just a flicker, it's enough. Even if it's just a breath. God hears it, and He's not grading your faith. He's honoring your fight. When faith doesn't feel enough. Why God feels distant in pain isn't just a title, it's a testimony. And you're still in the middle of yours.